The sky was a soft, endless gray when Ella arrived at the edge of the coast. The road behind her stretched for miles, empty and silent, ending in gravel and wind-swept grass. Before her the sea opened up, vast steel blue, and wild. The wind carried salt and the faint cry of gulls. To her left, perched on a jagged cliff, stood the lighthouse. It rose like a sentinel, white and cylindrical, with a black top and a thin railing circling the lantern room. Weathered but unshaken, it faced the horizon as if guarding something ancient. The path to it was narrow and worn, flanked by tufts of dune grass and patches of wild thyme. Ella walked slowly, her boots crunching against pebbles. She wasn't there for a tour, or for a photo. She came for the solitude. The keeper's cottage had been offered to her for the weekend. A friend of a friend owned it and had said simply, "It's good for thinking." Inside, the cottage was simple. Wooden floors, whitewashed walls, a kettle, a wood-burning stove, and a small writing desk facing the sea. A narrow staircase wound up into the lighthouse tower, and the scent of old books and driftwood lingered in the air. She set down her bag, lit the stove, and poured herself a cup of tea from the thermos she'd packed. Outside, the waves crashed with rhythmic power. Ella stepped onto the porch and watched them, arms folded against the cold. The sea was a living thing, restless, immense. She felt both small and safe in its presence. Around mid-morning, she climbed the winding staircase to the top of the lighthouse. Each step creaked, and the air grew thinner and brighter. When she emerged into the lantern room, light flooded in from all sides. The glass was weather-beaten, etched with salt, but the view was undisturbed. From here, she could see the curvature of the coastline. Far in the distance, the silhouette of fishing boats moved across the water like tiny insects. The wind howled just beyond the panes, pressing against the glass. She sat on the narrow bench beside the mechanism and pulled out her notebook. She wrote, "There are places where words go quiet. This is one of them. The lighthouse does not speak, it listens. To waves, to wind, to everything I didn't know I carried." She stayed there for hours. Not writing, not thinking too hard, just breathing. Watching the clouds shift, the birds dive, the spray leap off the rocks below. Time passed not in minutes, but in tides. In the afternoon, she walked along the cliff's edge, following a narrow trail that led to a cove. The beach below was covered in smooth stones and seaweed. She climbed down carefully, her fingers gripping cold rocks. Once there, she removed her shoes and stood with her feet in the freezing shallows. The sea surged and withdrew, again and again. She collected a few stones, green-gray, and one that sparkled faintly in the light. She placed them in her coat pocket and sat on a flat boulder, watching the horizon until her legs grew numb. Back at the cottage, she lit the fire again and made soup. She ate it with thick slices of bread, wrapped in a wool blanket near the window. Outside, the sun began to set, staining the sky with gold and amber. The lighthouse's light flickered to life, steady, rotating, unwavering. At dusk, she returned to the lantern room. The light mechanism turned slowly behind her, casting long rays through the mist. She sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, listening to the slow heartbeat of the structure. She remembered her grandfather once saying, "A lighthouse doesn't save ships by moving. It stands still and shines." She smiled and wrote, "I don't need to chase the world. I need to be a place it can return to." That night, the wind howled louder, and rain tapped gently on the roof. She lay in the small loft bed, wrapped in quilts, surrounded by the sound of the sea and the rhythm of the turning light above. It swept across the dark every 10 seconds, a slow, faithful pulse. Before falling asleep, she whispered into the dark, "Thank you for the silence, for the space, for the light." And the lighthouse, ancient and still, whispered back with light,